Looks like we're live. Welcome. Took a few minutes to get that sorted out. But it looks like we're live everywhere. Yes, all boxes ticked. So welcome. I thought I'd do a quick live before the New Year festivities begin. And we all get ourselves ready for 2022 and all of our different resolutions and things. So let me just move something over here because that is making... I'll do that. Like that. That can stay there. That's better. I won't look quite so orange. So welcome. I'll see if the little counter starts counting down. It looks like it will do in a minute. Let me just check my phone just to make sure it is live, because it had come up with a funny little error just now. Because there's a few, we're doing quite a few updates on the system. Oh no, it looks like it's live. There's one there. That's right. It's all clicking up. So we've got a bunch of new guys and girls in for the Full Frame Club. Who filled out the registration forms and have joined, which is brilliant. As you may have seen just before Christmas, I was getting all that ready. So we're going to be working with all of those in the coming weeks, next week, in fact, no less. And I've done a few one-to-ones with them already, so quite excited about some of the people we've got in, which is brilliant. But quite a few people messaged me and said, what about doing something for the Academy members? And there was a deal on at the time for the Academy members, but as in we'd open the doors, but we didn't do an offer. Rather like we did for the Full Frame Club. So we have an offer. And let me just get my brands right up here so I can show you. Let's have a little look. There we go. Get my banners up. Oh, where's it gone? Oh, I can't find it now. I'll come back to it in a minute. But we've got an amazing offer. Oh, that's annoying me now. Why I can't change that up there? Let's have a look. Bear with me. I'm going to get this changed. We can't be having that. Okay, let's try banners now. There we go. I've got them. I found them. Here we go. Put that up on the right. There you go. Got there in the end. So yes, we have put a deal up. So we opened the doors for a few days. I thought I'd started it today, so it's up and open ready. Rather, because if I try and do it later on tonight or Thursday in the morning, who knows what will happen? Because I'm planning to have a couple of drinks this evening to celebrate the beginning of 2022. But we have January sale, save up to 50%. So which is quite significant. There's two ways of doing it. There's 20% off the monthly membership, which is obviously very good. But the annual membership is half price basically. So it's like a few £100. So it works out at less than, do you know, I haven't done the maths. Let me do the maths. If you fancy joining on an annual basis, £249 divided by 12. 249 divided by 12 is £20 a month. You know, that's pretty good value considering all the stuff you get. So here's some of the things that you get, and then I'll go on to talk about the kind of things that we do in the club. And show some pictures and give you a few tips and advice, really. So the first thing to say is that there is a direct message facility, which might seem a bit of an odd thing to talk about, but not a lot of places have that. In that you subscribe and it's a bunch of videos and that's it. This is an organic live club, so we have a full private Facebook group, which I'm very active in, and all our members are active in. We do lots of active stuff. So the online learning modules, you join, there's a whole smorgasbord, love that word, of content in there, because we've been going a couple of years now. So there's tons of information there ready for you to go and consume and get excited about and learn more about and ask questions about and so on. But that is being produced. They're online learning modules, but we produce those all the time. So every week, obviously we had a bit of a break over the Christmas break, we're doing at least one, maybe two, sometimes 3 or 4 new modules about different subjects. So we might be talking about depth of field. We might be talking about the new Lightroom features that came out last year, towards the end of last year, about masking and all those kind of things. They're done live like this. Comments, members can come along live and they're scheduled. If they can make it, great. They come along and ask questions and comment. That's all then recorded, uploaded into your library, into your membership. So if you can't see the live ones, you see the recorded ones, all of which you'll be able to see when you join. There's a mobile app. You've got to have one of those these days, and we have one. So that was talking about the online learning modules. I've touched on the fact that we do them weekly, but they are, it's an ongoing thing. It's also sort of driven by the club as well. So people say to me, can we do this car? Can we do that car? What about having this? Can we do something on the new Lightroom tools? Or can you just talk about, I did one just for Christmas, which I'm going to do again. One I was going to do this week, which was getting organized, having an editing workflow. And it's become quite popular. So I'm going to do that again because there's lots of different aspects to it. I mean, new gear reviews. There is so much new stuff out. And so we talk about that in some detail. Do you all need to buy it? Is it expensive? Is it worth having? Who knows? But it all depends on where you are in your photography. But what I can tell you is you do not need to spend a lot of money to get great images. The best cameras are when you got with you. Sometimes that's a smartphone. And some of them take fantastic photos. We have a group image critique structure. So what that is that it gives people the ability to upload some images, a couple of images normally, sort of before and after, if you like, taken out of the camera, and then the edited version based on a theme that I'll set. And then when we've got enough entries in, we go live and I'll do a review of each of those images. And that's what I call critical analysis. So it's not just sort of, that's a really lovely image, isn't it? It will be, that's a really good image, but it'll be because, and it'll be all the details why. The depth field was good, the composition was good, the white balance was good, whatever it might be, so that you start to get a flavor of, whether it's your image or an image that you've seen that somebody else has put up, what makes a good image, what to do to get a good image, and all that kind of stuff contributes to the whole learning process. And it's very popular, I can tell you that. Once a month, we can do a one-to-one if you fancy it, like this, just you and me, if you remember, and talk about something specific. It might be getting your Lightroom sorted out, it might be getting your organization sorted out. It might even be popular as well. It might be that brand new camera you got for Christmas, or that you're going to buy with all that money you got for Christmas, or whatever it might be, getting out of its box and getting it set up right. So yeah, live group edits. This is something I've started to do quite a lot now. So once a week, typically, one of the webinars that are live will be to do with Lightroom or Photoshop, and I'll be showing you, how I edit a specific subject, and so on. So that is just a brief overview of some of the stuff in it. It's not all there. Let me go and put a comment up in the thing, which will show you the website, if I can do it. And I spelled that right. One of these days I'll be able to do this with a link, but there you go. Academy Beyond the Lens Academy.com. Right. If you go to the website, which is what that's just popped up, you'll see it. There's information on there. There's a big red thing saying it's up there for a few days for this save 50%, save 20%. And if you click on it, you'll go into the page. It tells you all the information you need to know about what's involved, what you get from it, and why it's such a good place. Also, there's some of the reviews on there, about from existing members, because we've been going a couple of years, we've been very successful actually. We have what's called a closed membership as well. I'll just touch on that. And what that basically is that we spend a lot of our time working with our members, whether it's the new full frame guys and girls who are looking to set up businesses, which I'm really excited to get involved with them, or existing members, or any of the new members that join as a result of this offer. We spend a lot of time working with them, and it's me live doing things like this, one-to-ones, whatever it might be. And so we prefer to be facing our customers than trying and getting new ones. We do it, a few times a year. We open the doors. So go through this process, we put an offer up, and we'll open the doors, or whatever it might be. But the rest of the time we're closed, working with all the lucky people in our membership. So that's why we are what's called a closed membership. Now, let's have a look at some pictures. Let's actually talk a little bit about photography, shall we? So let's have a little look. What's going on here? All the overlays have all moved around. That's interesting. Yeah, it's all different. Right, let me just go back to this one, which is right. So one of the most common things, so people sort of say to me, so they'll message me, say, "I'm thinking about joining a club, but I'm just a beginner. I've just got a new camera, or I've got a smartphone. And I'm thinking of moving forward with my photography." So one of the most popular things for those at that level, and we cater for everybody, as you'll have probably worked out, from those who've just got their first camera to people earning a very successful living. So one of the most popular things is this, the infamous auto button. Because people will say to me, "Oh yeah, Carl, I'd like to do images like these two, jump in the water," or this is dogs, obviously, this is what I'm known for, but it might be wildlife, could be this sort of stuff. I want to be able to do that. But I'm finding it difficult with my current camera because I'm on the auto button, it doesn't quite work out. And generally speaking, it won't. The auto button is fine. It's a good way of starting. It's good for sort of snapshots, really. Point and shoot, capturing something that's relatively normal, people, groups, photos of individuals and stuff. But the minute you want to start playing with what's called depth of field, or you need to get fast shots, whether you've got shutter speed that you need to have at a certain level, or you need to have your aperture at a certain level because you want to have a nice blurred background like in this one, then those things, generally speaking, are not likely to be, let's have a little look, are not likely to be the domain of what you're going to get out of auto. Because auto is, what it says is auto. Kind of, the camera decides what it's going to do for you. Works a lot of the time, but for most of what you want to do, if you want to start doing these things, you need to get off auto. So that's one of the first things that we often start helping people with. And it really, just to sort of spoiler alert, give you some flavors of how it works. What you need to be doing is, the first thing you need to understand is this: the good old exposure triangle, which is a method that's used in photography terms to describe the relationship between the aperture, which is in the bottom left, just see it above that blue line that's clicking along, and the shutter speed on the bottom right, on the ISO, which is the sensitivity in the top. And understanding that is critical. Whether you're a beginner, an amateur, or even a pro, it is the fundamental building block. It is kind of like when you're driving a car, you change gear automatically, you'll use the brake automatically, you'll steer automatically on the clutch and all that. It's the same thing. It's understanding that in a cognizant way, so you don't have to think about it. But in order to understand it, let's just say you're looking to take a shot like something like this, for example. People have to say to me when we're on these workshops that we go away on, okay, Carl, we're going to be doing the Gannett, so what shutters, what my settings need to be? And I'll say to them, think about the exposure triangle. And each of the aspects of it have an impact on your image. So shutter speed is the speed at which the shutters open, the amount of time it's open for. The faster it is, the less motion blur you're going to get. The ISO, which is sensitivity, the lower it is, the less noise you're going to get. The higher it is, the more noise you're going to get, which is the effective, in a way, the compromise, I suppose. And aperture is the amount of light you get in, which affects the depth of field. So for the shot of that Gannett, I had to have my shutter speed, so I didn't want motion blur. So for me, shutter speed was important. So I set that at, I think it was about 2000, something like that. And I had my aperture at 2.8 because I wanted a wide aperture, so that I could get a combination of a fast shutter speed to freeze the bird, keep him nice and still, blow the background out so it makes him pop from the image, which is what you get with a a shallow depth of field is what it's called with a wide aperture. I say a wide aperture, a wide aperture, because there's a lot of Gannets sat on there, and you can still see them there. Same here, look, with this bee. Wanted to blow out the background so that I could show you the orchid and the bee, but having a fast shutter speed so that I could freeze the action for the bee. So that's kind of one aspect of it. So if I'm thinking about depth of field, another one. So that's things like, let's have a little look. What have I got here that's got a good depth of field on it? Yeah, this one. That's nice and shallow, look. Background's nice and blurry. Here's another one, look. So if depth of field is important to you, and I'll show you a little bit, I'll come on and explain about depth of field, what it is. So then you'll be thinking, okay, so actually my priority here is making sure that in the bottom left-hand corner, I'm going to have my aperture as small a number as possible, which means the hole in the lens that lets the light in is as big as possible. I should pop on the screen now. And so that becomes my priority, but I've still got to make sure that I've got my shutter speed where I want it and my ISO where I want it, because they're important as well. It's a bit like, okay, I need to have the foot, my accelerator pressed down hard because I want to go fast, but I've got to be in gear. I've got to have the handbrake off. So you still got to think about them, but they have different priorities. And that's where you come into these, what they call aperture priority and shutter priority modes. We won't worry about too much about that today. So depth of field, let's have a look at depth of field for a minute. Here we go. This is a definition or some images that give you a flavor of the differences in terms of depth of field. So here we have at 3.5, the top left, what would be quite a shallow depth of field. So the leaves are on the branch are fairly sort of in the image, if you like, and the background's blurry. And that slowly changes as we drop down the aperture. But bearing in mind what I said about the accelerator and the brake, in order to keep this exposure correct, as in it's the same level of light and it looks similarly exposed, the shutter speed is having to drop down. So at f3.5, lots of light because the hole in the lens is big, which is why the number's small. So I need a fast shutter speed to make sure I don't overexpose. And obviously, as we get down to f22, which is a tiny little pinhole almost, they've got to be at 1/15 of a second. So that's kind of partly how you manage depth of field. Now, it's not just about aperture, because people often say to me, "Oh yeah, I'd love to have that. I like those sort of standout images that are got really beautiful, blurry bokeh backgrounds, but I haven't got a lens that's 2.8. Mine's 3.5 or 5.6." Fear not, because the other aspect of depth of field that affects it is the distance between you and the subject, as well as the zoom of your camera, separately or together. And it has the same effect, really. So here we are at 70 millimeters. That's a little camera with a background sort of blurry, but you can make out that it's a block of flats, and you can see, if you look at the graphs at the bottom here, that it's sort of focused, a little bit before and a little bit after it. As we zoom in, we're not moving anything. We're not changing anything on the camera, f5.6. We're not zooming in. We're not moving. We're just zooming in from 70 mil to 135 mil. And as you can see, the background now, obviously by zooming in, more of the frame gets cropped out. So the background doesn't have so much information in it. But you can see already the background is starting to look nice and blurry. And if you zoom into 200 mil, the background is really blurry. So if you have what we would call a kit lens, that's 5.6, don't worry, you can still achieve those kind of photos by zooming in or just getting closer. So for example, the depth of field that I usually shoot at on my lens, I use a 70-200 2.8, which is quite a nice lens for my dog photography business. I would say I'm shooting a dog, I'm just looking over there, that's, I don't know, 20 feet away, 15, 20 feet away. I've got a couple of 3 inches of depth of field. And if you look at some of my images, you'll be able to see. There you go. Little Wilfred from you. So his nose, actually just behind his nose and his eyes are sharp, but the background's nice and blurred. Just by stepping, so if I've got a fixed lens, say, and I can't zoom, but if I step back a meter, that depth of field will go from sort of 2.5 inches to 3. If I go forward, it will get shallower. But of course, I'll be getting close to the dog. So you've got to keep in mind that there's always going to be a bit of a trade-off in terms of what you're doing in terms of distance from your subject. And of course, keep in mind that most lenses, or all lenses, have what's called a minimum focus distance. If you look at the spec of your lens, you'll see it, and it will probably tell you you can normally tell if you look at the focus digits at the top. Most lenses, this is not a lens, by the way, it's a coffee cup, but they've got a little window there. Look, little window. Can't see it, so I won't focus on it. There's a little window, and it will tell you how close it focuses. But look up MFD, and it will say like 2 foot, 3 foot, or whatever. Or if it's a macro lens, so let's talk about macro photography. My phone's buzzing away. My members asking about mirrorless cameras. If you're looking at macro shots, let me find my little macro shot. What kind of macro shot? Here it is. Where's it gone? Oh, there it is. There's a little hoverfly with a what lens was that? It was my Canon. I haven't got it anymore, actually. Sold it. Canon 100mm macro lens. And the ability of the thing that makes a macro lens different to other lenses is its minimum focus distance is significantly smaller. That means you can get the lens instead of it being sort of 2 foot away before that, but beyond that it won't focus. You can get like that, almost touching it, and I'm able to therefore get shots like this. And even though I'm shooting at 2.8, you can see that the depth of field is basically the depth of that hoverfly is back down to, well, even his legs aren't sharp. So you're probably looking at a depth of field that's kind of like in the millimeters. And when you get into really sort of close macro work, you see these guys, there's a couple of guys, a chap called Max Macro I follow, he's amazing. He does photographs of spiders and flies and stuff, like of their eyes really close up, these tiny little things. But you're in depth of field there in the parts of a millimeter, so like 1/4 mil, 1/2 mil. And in order to get those sort of images set up right, you need specialist equipment in terms of tripods and everything else. But then you'll be using a thing called focus stacking. And what that basically is you'll take a picture there, and then one there, and one there, and you're basically taking slices of that depth of field that's 1 millimeter, and then you can build them up and combine those images together to make it look all sharp. They're quite good fun. What's the other thing about noise then? So let's talk about noise. Actually, you think about it. So noise, this is what it is. This gives you a flavor of what noise is. So there we are. On the left-hand side, we've got what we would call a clean image with ISO 100, and on the right-hand side, ISO 3200 with what's called a noisy image. Grain, basically. That's that sort of grain, that motley effect you get on your images is usually noise. And the single most common thing that drives it is your ISO setting. So if you have your camera set at, say, ISO 200 and your other settings correct and it exposes okay, you're probably not going to have much noise at all. The higher that noise settings or ISO setting goes, 400, 600, 800, 1200, 1600, 3200, and so on, and even higher, you're going to get more noise. So one of the keys to avoiding noise is to have the ISO as low as you can, which means that you need to think about those other two settings in that triangle, because there's no point necessarily having a shutter speed of, say, 4,000 of a second when you're photographing a Spaniel running at you, which will probably be sharp enough at 1,600 a second. Because as a result of that extra shutter speed, which is the shutters open and closing even less, that means there's less light, which means if your aperture is open as wide as it can be, say at 2.8, your ISO is going to be up relatively high in order to make sure the exposure is correct. If you drop the shutter speed down to the level it needs to be at, then you can make sure you can drop your ISO a bit lower. That makes sense. Same with the aperture. If you've got your aperture set at 5.6, 7.2, anything like that, it's going to be dark, which means your ISO is going to be high. So whack it up to 2.8 if you've got a 2.8 lens. So yeah, that's just a couple of things. Here we go. There's another little aperture diagram. I've got loads of these sort of things we do in the academy. So, it's like learning to drive a car. So, and one of the things that you'll find with photography, there are lots of acronyms and descriptions that are kind of slightly logical. So you kind of would think, when you that f1.4, if I go to f16, because it's a bigger number, I get more light, but actually you don't. You can see the hole is smaller. So there's some odd things in photography. But photography, for those looking to get off auto, or the amateurs that we've got in the membership who are doing things like this, looking to try and get these sort of standout action shots, refine their techniques and stuff like that. It is really just a process of working with the team, people in the academy already, people in the Facebook group, and practicing. And one of the things that I get sort of feedback quite regularly about is that people that are in the academy love the fact that it's a place to be where it's ongoing. It's nice, not just a bunch of videos. Not knocking those things because they're okay, but we're sort of an active group. So every week we're doing something, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to try this on my camera now. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. I see Alison's just popped up a picture of a load of dogs doing one thing, or somebody's put up some shots of some motorbikes doing something. And it makes you inspired to use your camera, because photography can be, especially as an amateur beginner, if you're not a professional particularly, you'll go off and out on your own. You go out wandering for a bit with your camera, take some photos, and you'll like them, and you might put them on Facebook or whatever. But you're not getting a regular feedback loop, and it can be quite lonely. And so being part of a group, a membership, Facebook group, all the things that we're doing really does improve people's photography, because it gives them a reason for being. What else do we do in the academy? Editing. Get asked about this a lot. I'm an Adobe accredited associate. What does that mean? It means I've done a lot of editing, and I've been on a course and I passed. But effectively, I spend a lot more. I do all my editing in Lightroom if anybody's interested. I do use Photoshop. I do know how to use it, but I don't use it very often. And so, getting an image edited, if you shoot in RAW, which is another thing to think about, there's RAW and JPEG. And so effectively, in simple terms, a JPEG image comes out of your camera, it's a much smaller file, typically already slightly edited with a lot of data thrown away. Whereas a RAW file is a much bigger file, nothing done to it, might look a little bit flatter, but will need a bit of tweaking at the very least. So let me show you examples. So here's a shot. This is a raw image straight out of the camera of a dog, which some of you might look, oh yeah, I'd probably bin that. But because I shot it in RAW, a 5-minute edit turned it into that, which is a perfectly acceptable photo. In fact, it's a lovely photo. So editing is a really important part of what we do. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be using Lightroom. It's not expensive now. I think it's $10 a month, and I got Lightroom, Photoshop, and a few other things. But you can use Snapseed, Affinity Pro, whatever you're using. The main thing is to understand the editing workflow that you want to use, having some kind of system, and understanding all the different features, and understanding what we can do in terms of creating images and editing. I mean, obviously in things in Photoshop, you can take, I could take that image there, that dog, and stick it in a completely different background, in a completely different environment. Composite, it's called. Not something I'm a real fan of, to be honest. I do a lot of it because most of my work is this sort of stuff. This is what I'm known for: doggy shots, doing what they do in the wild. But it is an important part of it. Editing is really, really important. So we've got to cover that. What else do we talk about? Long exposures. So using filters. That's something we've been doing quite a lot lately. So how you get a shot like that, or how you get these lovely long exposures by the sea. This is in Ireland, by the way. So those are the things there. We do also run, not as many spaces left on them, what we call photography retreats, signature photography retreats, no less. And they are where we go away, and the next one is when's the next one? Well, it's full. It's in February next month. We're going up to the Highlands. We're going to be staying here on this beautiful lake. You can see there's a bit of a lake there. There you go. That's looking down on where that. It's not a lake. It's a loch Rannoch. And it'll be snowing, so we're going to be looking to get. Where's my pictures of cold things? There we go. So we're going up in the mountains, taking photos of these sort of things. And these are very, very high quality, almost like holidays, really, in that we, and so people bring partners. So you don't, if your partner's not bothered about photography, wants to come away with you, more than welcome. We stay in beautiful locations, like the ones I've just shown you, and fully catered, so have decent, very good food every evening, nice breakfast in the morning, a few glasses of wine of an evening, and all that kind of stuff. And the learning process is very hands-on. So I run them with a chap called Alan Ward, a very good friend of mine, an accomplished wildlife photographer, and videographer, and so on. And we'll small groups, 8 people typically, and we'll get up in the morning and we'll have breakfast and we'll have a chat about what we're going to do for the day. It might be that we're going to be doing landscapes. It might be that we're going to do some long exposure stuff. It might be that we're going to try and get some eagles, otters, whatever it might be. We'll be talking about the tips and techniques that you need to think about during the course of the day, and we're with you. It's not overly intense at all, very relaxed, which people love. The feedback certainly is that people really enjoy that way of learning. And then we'll go out for the day and have some fun, take some photos, hopefully get what it is we're trying to achieve. And then in the evening, people come back and they'll be loading their cameras on their iPads or onto their computers or whatever. And we'll start having a little look, we'll get dinner on the go and open a glass of wine or whatever. We just go through them, and I might pop on one of the screens, an editing workflow for the particular images that we've done that evening. So they are really, really popular trips, hence the reason they get sold out. So the February one is sold out. We're going to the Mat Loop. I've got any pictures of jets on here? I don't think I have, actually. In April, 23rd of April for a week, there are 2 spaces left. So I'm just trying to find some pictures of jets. I haven't got any. So if anybody knows what the Mat Loop is, it's a place up in Wales, which is really, really, really good fun. Where it's landscape photography and wildlife as well. But here we go. That's what we do. So this is when we went last year. We went in July last year, a bit later. So this is a photo that Jim Connolly, one of our members, took. He was on this side of the ridge, as you can probably tell from the photo. But those 4 reprobates, that's me, Alan, and a couple of our members on the other side, up at the hill. So we had such good fun. Here's a shot I took. Jet coming through, amazing, really, really good fun. There's 2 spaces on that. If you're interested, drop me a message, because it's not on the website, that one. Although I've put it on the Facebook page. There's information on the Facebook page about it. And then the only other one we got is Mull, which is in July. We're up there for 2 separate weeks in July, from the 3rd to the 9th, I think it is. 2nd to the 9th, I can't remember. Anyway, the date's on the website. And we are staying here. All of that is ours, including the tiny little cottage next to it. This is a slightly different view. Absolutely stunning. This is what it's like inside. Breathtaking. There are 2 spaces left. Information is on our website as well as the Facebook. I did a post the other day about it because people were asking about it and I was getting confused about dates. So that's something else that we do. So, people, and a lot of our members, in fairness, actually, the majority of people that go on them are people who've been on the ones before. So when we started doing them a couple of years ago, we did one in the October of 2020, I think it was. And we went up to the Highlands, and pretty much all of those people have done all the other ones since. They tend to come like, oh, when are you doing the next one, Carl? Can I book? And for members who've been on a few of them, you have a little discount structure as well, so they save a bit of money as a loyalty bonus, if you like. So I hope that helps. How are we doing? Ooh, half an hour. I'm going to leave you in peace because it's 4:30 and it's New Year's Eve. So I hope you have a great New Year's Eve, whatever you're doing, whether you're going out, staying in, or whatever. But whatever you're doing, stay safe. I look forward to seeing you all in 2022, working with you. I shall still do a few Facebook Lives. Try and do one a week if I can. But in a nutshell, if you are a photographer or are thinking about improving your photography at any level, you need to be thinking about getting here we go, it comes on there, into the membership. So you go to the website, click on it. And you join and you pay the annual one. It's a few £100. It's a half price at the moment, as well as 20% off the monthly one. So there's monthly and annual options. And we won't be opening now for several months at least. And this will be open for a few days. So where are we now? It's going to be the first couple of 3 days. Second or third, we'll probably shut the doors. And then get on with it. So if you're thinking about it, don't delay. Love to see you inside the academy. If you've got any questions, drop me a message. I'm always happy to answer questions. So Happy New Year, almost. Happy New Year's Eve. And I will see you all on the other side, as they say. See you later. Oh, I've got a little outro video. Let me play this. I get told off for not playing it.